G'day guys, I'm going to be doing a review this evening. Hope you're all well. This film I'm going to be reviewing is of the more extreme nature, so anyone who's easily offended or very sensitive, this is not the film for you. This is a film, it's an Australian film, so um, I've got a soft spot for Australian film, as you know. It's made in 1992, directed by Jeffrey Wright, and that is Romper Stomper. This film is about a young woman named Gabrielle, played by Jacqueline McKenzie, who's a famous Australian actress. Her character, Gabrielle, she's a very troubled young woman. She's living with an abusive drug addict boyfriend, and he goes psycho, trashes the house, and then she wants to leave. So she rings her father and her father's friend to come pick her up and take care of it. So anyway, the father comes and offers or tells Gabrielle to come back home with him and live with him. But she doesn't want to because since she was really young, her dad had been molesting her, and he's still touching her in very inappropriate ways. And there's a scene here where he starts touching her, and it's very, very disturbing and very uncomfortable. Anyway, she decides to leave the boyfriend, and she doesn't go back with her father for obvious reasons. And so she goes to a pub, and at this pub she meets Hando, played by Russell Crowe on the front here. Now Hando is a very violent, psychopathic leader of a neo-Nazi skinhead gang, and he's with his best friend Davey, played by Daniel Pollock. Now, unfortunately, after this film was released, Daniel Pollock actually threw himself in front of a train, so that was very tragic. But anyway, Daniel Pollock plays his best friend Davey, and pretty soon Gabrielle falls, she thinks she falls in love with Hando. But all through the film, Davey has an eye for Gabrielle as well. But anyway, they go back to their home, which is an abandoned warehouse, and pretty soon Gabriel realizes what these guys do. They've got Nazi propaganda all over the place. Hando's walls are covered with swastikas, and Hando owns a book written by Adolf Hitler that he treats as a Bible. And he soon explains to Gabriel what they're about. They're worried that the Vietnamese community in Melbourne are going to make the white race extinct, and it's up to them to scare the Vietnamese off to make sure this doesn't happen. So very warped thinking processes they have. But yeah, these guys are complete losers. They don't work. They live off welfare. They live in this abandoned warehouse, really old, and just a really crappy lifestyle they live. And they just go about bashing these Vietnamese people. And a few very graphic scenes. Like the first scene is pretty hard to watch. That's not that graphic, but they're beating the crap out of this Vietnamese woman and man. And then near the halfway point, they're torturing these two Vietnamese guys, and they're breaking their fingers, all very graphically, breaking their fingers, stomping on their ribs, bashing out their teeth, humiliating them, shouting out really racist things. And yeah, that was an extremely hard scene to watch. It was just really depressing, just how brutal it was and how much these skinheads were enjoying torturing these two Vietnamese guys. But anyway, these two Vietnamese guys getting tortured, their friends come along. A gang of Vietnamese, they come along and they clash with these skinheads, and there's a huge brawl that takes place. And this is where the tables are turned. It's actually the skinheads who are getting beaten, and they retreat. Now, this brawl is probably one of the most realistic brawls I've ever seen. It's very violent, very in your face, doesn't hide anything. There's no excessive amount of blood. It's just a very brutal uh, fight scene. You know, the violence throughout this film is not glamorized, not glorified. It shows violence for what it is, horrible. Um, and yeah, I mean, the scene where they're torturing those two Vietnamese really got to me, and I warn people who want to see this that yeah, this is pretty hard to watch. But anyway, a few of these skinheads get badly beaten, and I don't know if they get killed, but I think they do. And then the second half of the film is basically the surviving skinheads wanting revenge, and things don't quite go the way they planned. There's a lot of internal fighting. There's a bit of a love triangle between Gabriel, Hando, and Davey, so that kind of gets in the way of things. And the whole gang pretty much crumble with this fighting amongst each other. And so, yeah, I think the first half of the film was really good. I think it kind of let it down a bit with the second half. It took a whole new direction. I would have liked it to stay with this tension between the skinheads and the Vietnamese, but it kind of took a completely different direction. It kind of forgot about the Vietnamese problem, the issues between the gang and the Vietnamese community. Completely forgot that halfway through and just took a completely different angle. Now, I did like this film, but it would have been so much better if it just stayed on a more consistent, just one story. Because I didn't like the second half as much. I mean, there are some pretty brutal scenes still, but the real hard-hitting stuff is in the first half of the film. And so I think there's a little bit of a wasted opportunity. This could have been a great film, but it's still a good film. This has actually won 3 AFI awards in 1992. Now, AFI is Australian Film Industry, so it's kind of like the Oscars here in Australia. Russell Crowe won Best Actor. He was brilliant in this. He's really just a really troubled psycho loser, as were all the skinheads. Davey had a bit more remorse for what he did. He was the more likable, although none of these characters were likable. But he was the one who saw more sense. You could tell that while this violence was happening, he sort of wasn't so comfortable doing it. Hando was definitely he had an influence over the whole gang. He was like the father figure, and what he says, they had to do. So you could tell Davey, he was kind of regretting what he was doing, but as for Hando, he was just a complete psycho. Really good fight scenes. The brawl is really good. On the back there, you see the gang of Vietnamese and the skinheads. A very dark sort of film. There's no colour in it. It's pretty much like every day in this film was really dark and gloomy and cloudy and stormy like. There was no rain in it, but you know what I mean. The picture is very grey. So it's a very dirty style of film. A lot of graphic sex scenes in it. There's a lot of very brutal violence in it, and a lot of racism. There's even a few racist songs in there that were just made for this movie. White supremacist songs. So it's a very touchy subject. This will offend a lot of people, but if you want to see a really good Australian film, well, I'll give this one a look. And as I said, the second half of the film let it down a bit, but it doesn't get in the way of the fact that this is a pretty good film. Alright guys, I hope you like this review, and I will see you later. Bye.